welcome to this session today. My name is Amanpreet Bhangoo from Woolloongabba Consultants. If you are looking to understand the Australian migration system, then you don't need to look any further, because today I'm going to explain all you need to know about Australian migration system and how you can get permanent residency in Australia. Let's discuss employer sponsored visa. So again, similar to the general skill migration, there are three different categories, three different subclasses for the employer sponsored visa. First one is Subclass 482. Second one is Subclass 186. The third one is Subclass 494. Let's first talk about Subclass 482, which is basically a temporary visa, and any of these visas can be lodged from Australia or from offshore. That means even if you're overseas and you have an employer, you can still lodge these visas. The good thing about the employer-sponsored visas is that you don't have to wait for any expression of interest. You don't have to wait for anything. As long as you land a job in Australia and your employer is willing to sponsor you, you can straight away lodge the application, as opposed to skill migration, waiting for the expression of interest, allowing you to lodge the visa application. So the first category, Subclass 482, it's a temporary visa that can be granted up to 4 years. In December 2024, the department revised the list that is applicable to 482. That now comprises of around 600 different occupations, and if your occupation is on the list and you have an employer who is willing to sponsor you, you are ready to go and lodge this visa application. If you meet these few conditions. So what are those conditions? Number one, you need to have at least 1 year of full-time experience, and that could be part-time, which is 2 years, which makes it equivalent to 1 year full-time. So if you have 1 year full-time experience in your nominated occupation, for example, if you are a tiler or a painter and you have 1 year experience, or an engineer, or any IT like a business analyst, or any occupation that you belong to, if you have a 1 year full-time experience, then that makes you eligible for Subclass 482. English, you need to have 5 each in IELTS or equivalent. Now there are around 7 different tests that you can appear into, and if you get the equivalent score to 5 each in English, then you are eligible to apply for 482. As the name suggests, and I've explained it before, that you need to have an employer who's willing to sponsor you, making you eligible to apply for this visa. The third requirement for Subclass 482 is skills assessment. Right? But this is not a mandatory requirement for all the occupations. There are around 21 occupations, mainly trade, and it also has another condition that everyone doesn't have to have the skill assessment. It's only particular countries, and the list of countries is given in the instrument. For example, if you're a chef and your country is India, then you need a skill assessment. For the skill assessment, again, you need to have a certain number of years of experience, because it's a trade. But in general, if your occupation is on the list and it's not on the list of mandatory skill assessment, only 1 year of experience will make you eligible for Subclass 482. So now if you meet these three conditions, that either you have the skill assessment, or you are exempted to have the skill assessment, you have 5 each in English, and you have 1 year of experience in your occupation, and you have a sponsor who is willing to sponsor you, this visa is for you, and you can lodge this visa, and this visa can be granted for up to 4 years. So you can get it for 2 years, 3 years, or 4 years, depending on your circumstances. And once you get this visa, it makes you eligible to apply for permanent residency after 2 years. So once you work for your employer in Australia for 2 years, that makes you eligible for the permanent residency through Subclass 186. That is called 186 transition streams. That means that you're transitioning from 482 to 186 after 2 years. So it's a good idea to get the visa for at least 3 years. And once your 2 years are completed, you can move on to Subclass 186, and that is your permanent residency visa. The Subclass 186 has another way of getting. You can directly apply for 186, and that is your permanent residence application straight away. But for that, you need to have at least 3 years of experience in your nominated occupation after qualification. That means, let's say if you are a mechanical engineer, you need to complete your studies and have a 3 years experience post-qualification and have 6 each in English and have a skill assessment, which is a mandatory requirement for this visa. And obviously you need to have a sponsor employer in Australia who's willing to sponsor you. And if you have all these conditions, you can definitely apply for direct entry Subclass 186, which gives you access to permanent residency in Australia straight away. Now let's move on to the third category, Subclass 494. Similar to Subclass 491 in the general skill migration, 494 is again a provisional visa, which means it's categorized as a temporary visa and it's in the regional area. So 494 is only applicable if you have an employer who is based in the regional area of Australia. So there are 3 conditions basically for the nominee if you want to apply for this visa. You need to have 3 years of full-time experience as skilled employment, and you need to have 6 each in English and a mandatory skill assessment in your nominated occupation. Obviously you need to have an employer who is willing to sponsor you in the regional part of the Australia, and if all these conditions are met, then you are eligible and you can apply for the Subclass 494. This again is a provisional visa. It will be granted for 5 years and you will be eligible to apply for permanent residency after 3 years. You need to work, live and study in the regional area, and you need to be working in the same job with approved sponsor for 3 years and at a salary level which is required at 76,515 up to June 2026, but for the next financial year this will go up to 79,499, and each year it will move up and up because it's indexed, so it goes up every year in the beginning of the financial year, which is from 1st of July. So if you meet all these requirements, then you should be able to apply for these employer-sponsored visa, and this is all you need to know about the employer-sponsored visa.